Hello, I'm Todd Spatafor, and this is another Spectacular thing. So up to now, we've created our Kubernetes cluster on Raspberry Pi 4s, and we've built persistent volumes and persistent volume claims for our Nginx server. This time we're going to tie it all together and deploy a Git server on Kubernetes. We're going to deploy Gitea using raw Kubernetes manifests. This will make us appreciate Helm a lot more next time when we dive into Helm. So this time we're going to deploy our application to Kubernetes. We're going to delete the pod and show that everything stays up and running. This is where everything all comes together. So this is what we've got going on. We've got a namespace, and within that namespace we have a persistent volume claim, the Gitea pod, as well as the Gitea service. Outside of the namespace, we have the persistent volume and our user. Our user connects to the Gitea service over HTTP through the pod, the port that is listed for the pod. Let's take a look at our YAML files. First, we've got the Gitea persistent volume. Its name is GitTPV. Its storage capacity is 5 gigs, and its access mode is read-write many, so that many pods can access this persistent volume at once. And then we've got our NFS data information here, and our persistent volume reclaim policy of retain. Next, we have our persistent volume claim YAML file. This sets the name of the persistent volume claim to Gitea PVC, sets it in the namespace of Gitea, which we will create before we get started. The spec, we want read-write many for the access mode, and we want a storage capacity of 5 gigabytes. Now we get to the heart of the matter. This is the Gitea deployment YAML file. The Gitea deployment YAML file sets it into the namespace of Gitea with one replica and a label of Gitea. Then we have our security context, run as non-root true, run as user 2000, run as group 2000, and fs group 2000. That sets it the same as our NFS share on the server. And then we want to use the rootless image of Gitea because of our security context that we're running in. And that needs everything to be on a port above 1024. So our container port for HTTP is 3000 and SSH is 2222. Now this will be different on the exposed version of these ports, which we will get to in just a minute. Next, we have a bunch of environment variables that we need to set, including our user ID and group ID of 2000. These are important because the configuration for the Gitea. We are going to use SQLite for this version of Gitea, for this release of Gitea. I really don't see any reason to stick with Postgres for this. It's just going to be a small server that less than 20 people are going to access at one time. In fact, it's going to be one person accessing it, just me. So, and then we set our volume mount of data to get storage, and then we request 256 megabytes of memory and about a tenth of a CPU, and then we limit it at 512 megabytes of memory and half a CPU. And last but not least, we set our persistent volume claim to Gitea PVC. And last, we have the Gitea service YAML file. This just sets our ports to 30,300 for HTTP and 30,022 for SSH. This is where the external user can connect to these ports to access our application. Okay, let's get started then. On our NFS server, we want to create the directory for our Gitea deployment, and that's just in mount raid Kubernetes Gitea. And then we want to change the ownership to group 2000 and user 2000 for that same directory. That makes all of the permissions much easier to handle. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we want to do is deploy our persistent volume. And to do that, we do kube control, apply, -f, and then our getTPV.yaml file. Next, we want to create the namespace, so we do kubectl create namespace getT. And we want to create that persistent volume claim, so kubectl apply f getT pvc.yaml. Once the claim has been laid, then we want to go ahead and do a get pv and pvc to make sure that they are bound. And you can see that they are all bound. This also shows our NFS PV from earlier. That's why that's still there from another video. Okay, next we want to deploy the application itself. So we do kubectl apply -f and our getT-deployment.yaml file. Hit enter and the deployment is created. So the pod is running. Now we want to deploy the service. And the service is created. So everything should be running. Let's go ahead and check that now with the kubectl get pods and services in our namespace getT. And you can see they're both running. Next, let's look at the initial configuration of getT. All of this is pre-filled in from our environment variables that we set in the YAML file for the deployment. So we can go ahead and do install getT, and we wait a minute while it spins up. It spins up the database, it spins up all of the different directories that are needed, and then installing now. Please wait. Once it's done installing, we want to register our initial user. The initial user is also the admin of the account, so go ahead and just place their information here. This is going to be the admin again. Click register account and we should be in. There's the home page. Now let's go ahead and create a repository. We do that by clicking the plus sign next to the repositories on the right hand side of the screen. We give a repository a name. We're going to call it Kate's here, and scroll all the way down to the bottom. I don't think we need a description. Yeah, just scroll to the bottom and click create repository. And our repository is created. Copy the SSH address, and then we can go ahead and get started. Back at the terminal, let's go ahead and create a get remote. So get remote add origin, and then the address of that, but we have to change the port to 30,022. So because that's where our service is listening. Then we go ahead and get push origin main, and oh, I forgot to add in my public key. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. Let's clean up a little bit and remove that remote origin, that remote server. And next, let's get our SSH key, our public key. And to do that, we change directories to .ssh. We cat our the ed25519.pub file. We copy this, and then we go back to getT. We click on our little icon in the upper right hand corner, go to settings, go to SSH keys. We want to add the key, we give it a name, main computer, enter in that content, which is our key, our public key, add key, and then we want to verify that key. So let's go ahead and click verify. I said click verify. There you go. And then we want to copy this generate signature using line here. And we paste that into our command prompt. And we change the private key to our private key. Can never remember that it's 25519. Then we copy the SSH signature and we paste it in here and click verify. And if everything works, then our key is verified. Let's go to our repository of Kate's, copy the SSH address again, and then we want to recreate that remote. We didn't need to delete the remote. I just did because I like things to be tidy. So we'll recreate that remote, change the address to 30,022 once again, and then go ahead and git push our local. I have a local Git directory here with all of my Kate's information in it, and it's going to push all that to Gitea, and then we can go back to Gitea and refresh this page, and all of our configuration files are in Gitea. So that worked. Next, let's go ahead and kill the pod. So we'll get the pods first in the namespace Gitea, copy the address, and we will delete the pod in the namespace Gitea, our Gitea pod. And it's deleted. Let's check that it comes back up, and it does. You can see the name is different. And if we go back to Gitea and we refresh the page, oh no. Oh yeah. And it might take a second, but it comes right back. So we've deployed a real application with persistent storage, and we've stored all of our manifests in Gitea. Now we're going to make this a little bit easier. The manifests are getting bigger, and they're not going to get any easier. So next time we're going to take a look at Helm and how it can automate most of this work for us. We're going to also install Prometheus and Grafana so we can start monitoring our cluster. So stay tuned and subscribe, ring the bell so you're notified when new videos hit, and give us a like while you're down there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a comment down below, or just to say hi. So thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye.